June 6, 1944, forever altered human history. Known as D-Day, the Allied forces launched a massive invasion of Nazi-occupied France. Codenamed Operation Overlord, it marked a turning point in World War II. It signaled the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The stakes were incredibly high. Failure would have been catastrophic. Over 150,000 Allied troops, thousands of ships, and countless aircraft were involved. The fate of millions rested on this single day. Success hinged on meticulous planning, technological superiority, and courage. The Allies spent months preparing. Every detail was considered. D-Day was a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Soldiers, many barely out of their teens, faced unimaginable horrors, yet they persevered, driven by duty, camaraderie, and belief in their cause. The decision to launch a cross-channel invasion of Europe was not taken lightly. By 1942, the Soviet Union was bearing the brunt of the Nazi war machine. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin had been pressuring his Western allies, the United States and Great Britain, to open a second front in Western Europe. This would relieve pressure on the Eastern Front. However, a successful invasion required extensive planning and resources. The Allies needed time to build up their forces and gather the necessary equipment. They also needed to choose the right time and place for the invasion. The French coastline, heavily fortified by the Germans, posed a formidable challenge. The idea for Operation Overlord began to take shape in 1943. US General Dwight D. Eisenhower was appointed Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force. British General Bernard Montgomery was given command of the ground forces. The chosen landing site was the Normandy coastline in northern France. Normandy offered a number of advantages. The beaches were relatively wide and flat, suitable for landing craft. The bocage countryside, with its hedgerows and sunken lanes, would provide some cover for the advancing troops. Moreover, the German defences in Normandy were considered to be weaker than in other areas. The planning for Operation Overlord was an incredibly complex undertaking. Military strategists, logisticians, and intelligence officers worked tirelessly for months on end. Every aspect of the invasion, from the initial landings to the subsequent breakout, was meticulously planned and rehearsed. One of the key challenges was maintaining secrecy. The Germans knew an invasion was coming, they just didn't know when or where. The Allies went to extraordinary lengths to deceive the enemy. They created a phantom army, complete with dummy tanks and aircraft, to mislead German intelligence. Logistics played a crucial role in the success of D-Day. The sheer volume of men and material that needed to be transported across the English Channel was staggering. Special harbours, known as Mulberry Harbours, were prefabricated and towed across the Channel to provide sheltered unloading areas. The air campaign in the months leading up to D-Day was equally critical. Allied bombers targeted German communication lines, bridges, and transportation hubs. This was done to disrupt enemy reinforcements and soften up defences along the coast. The Allies knew that surprise was crucial for the success of D-Day. To achieve this, they devised an elaborate deception plan, codenamed Operation Fortitude, to mislead the Germans about the true location and timing of the invasion. Operation Fortitude had two main components, Fortitude North and Fortitude South. Fortitude North was designed to make the Germans believe that the invasion would come in Norway. Dummy radio transmissions, troop movements, and even inflatable tanks were used to create the illusion of a large-scale invasion force gathering in Scotland. Fortitude South, arguably the more crucial part of the deception, aimed to convince the Germans that the Pas-de-Calais region, the narrowest point between England and France, was the primary target. This was achieved through a combination of double agents, fake radio traffic, and strategic deployment of decoy equipment. Even General Patton, known for his aggressive tactics, was placed in command of a fictitious army group supposedly poised to strike at Calais. The success of Fortitude can be attributed to the meticulous planning and coordination of Allied intelligence agencies. They exploited German biases and fed them carefully crafted misinformation. The Germans, convinced that Calais was the main target, kept a significant portion of their forces there, even after the landings in Normandy had begun. Into the jaws of death, the landings. In the pre-dawn hours of June 6, 1944, under a shroud of secrecy and anticipation, Operation Overlord swung into action. Thousands of Allied troops aboard a vast armada of ships and landing craft prepared to storm the beaches of Normandy. The fate of the free world hung in the balance. The Normandy coastline was divided into 5 landing beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. American forces were assigned to Utah and Omaha, British forces to Gold and Sword, and Canadian forces to Juno. Each beach presented its own unique challenges, from natural obstacles to heavily fortified German defenses. The initial waves of troops faced a terrifying onslaught. German machine guns, mortars, and artillery rained down a deadly hail of fire. The beaches were soon littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers. The noise was deafening, the air thick with the smell of cordite and death. Despite these horrific conditions, the Allied troops persevered, driven by a combination of duty, adrenaline, and sheer determination. They fought their way ashore, inch by bloody inch, securing a foothold on the enemy-held beaches. Section 6: Stories from the Beaches, Courage Under Fire. Amidst the chaos and carnage of D-Day, countless acts of bravery and self-sacrifice unfolded on the blood-soaked beaches of Normandy. These were, ordinary men who performed extraordinary feats of valor in the face of unimaginable adversity. Their stories serve as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. One such story is that of Captain John Miller, a U.S. Army Ranger who led his men in a daring assault on Pointe du Hoc. Tasked with silencing a German artillery battery that threatened the landings at Utah and Omaha beaches, Miller and his men scaled the treacherous cliffs under intense enemy fire. Another poignant story is that of Private Charles de Glopper, a paratrooper with the 101st Airborne Division. Landing behind enemy lines, de Glopper single-handedly held off a German advance, allowing his comrades to regroup. He fought with incredible courage until he was ultimately overwhelmed and killed. These are just a few of the countless stories of heroism that emerged from the crucible of D-Day. The soldiers who landed on those beaches, many of whom were just teenagers, faced their fears and fought with unwavering determination. Section 7: Breaking Through the Atlantic Wall. The Germans had spent years fortifying the French coastline in anticipation of an Allied invasion. This network of defenses, known as the Atlantic Wall, consisted of bunkers, pillboxes, minefields, and anti-tank obstacles. Breaking through this formidable barrier was a daunting task. The Allies employed a combination of air power, naval bombardment, and sheer manpower to overcome the Atlantic Wall. Battleships and cruisers pounded German positions with their heavy guns, while fighter bombers strafed enemy troops and emplacements. However, it was the infantrymen on the ground who bore the brunt of the fighting. One of the most heavily defended sections of the Atlantic Wall was Omaha Beach. American troops landing there faced a brutal reception. The beaches were overlooked by high bluffs, giving the German defenders a commanding view of the battlefield. Casualties were heavy, and for a time it seemed as if the landings might be thrown back into the sea. However, the Americans refused to give up. Small groups of soldiers, led by junior officers and NCOs, found ways to exploit gaps in the German defenses. They fought their way inland, yard by yard, inch by inch, until they finally broke through the enemy lines. Section 8: The Allied Advance, a turning point in the war. The successful Allied landings in Normandy marked a turning point in World War II. The establishment of a secure foothold in France gave the Allies a base from which to launch further operations against the heart of Nazi Germany. The liberation of Europe had begun. However, the battle for Normandy was far from over. The Germans, initially taken aback by the scale and audacity of the invasion, quickly regrouped and launched fierce counterattacks. The Bocage countryside, with its hedgerows and sunken lanes, proved to be ideal terrain for defensive warfare. Despite facing stiff resistance, the Allies gradually gained the upper hand. Their superior firepower and logistics, combined with the unwavering determination of their soldiers, proved too much for the Germans to overcome. By the end of August 1944, the Battle of Normandy was over. The Germans had been driven from France, and the Allies were poised to advance into Germany itself. D-Day had paved the way for the final victory in Europe. Section 9: D-Day's Legacy, a testament to human courage and sacrifice. D-Day, June 6, 1944, stands as a pivotal moment in human history. It was a day of immense sacrifice and unwavering courage. The beaches of Normandy are hallowed ground. The courage displayed by the Allied soldiers continues to inspire awe. D-Day highlighted the importance of international cooperation. The lessons of D-Day remain relevant today. The spirit of D-Day continues to inspire hope for a better future.